Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Eden Alternative show today. I am very excited to be here with some teammates or team members from Points West, which are part of Connecting Care. And our team members today come to us from Canada. So very excited to have you all with us today for our live show. So the title of the show today that we came up with, or you came up with, is really about building person-directed communities through empowerment. So very excited about this topic. I happen to know these teams pretty good, so I am looking forward to hearing their stories. It's been an inspiration just planning for the show, I'll tell you. So again, they're going to share these experiences about really building strong teams. And when we talk about strong teams, it's about all the care partners. So it's employees, it's family members, right? It's elders, it's residents, sometimes even volunteers, and how this has really happened through these kind of challenging times that we faced, right? So who do we have with us today? This is Sarah Walker. Sarah Walker, hello, Sarah. She is the general manager of Points West Living Lloydminster. We have Mary Lou Duncan. Hey, Mary Lou. She is the community mentor for Connecting Care. We have Michelle Laney. Hey, Michelle.
Hiya.
And she is the wellness supervisor and educator for Points West Living Lloydminster. We also have George Rath, the founder and ambassador of Community Experience. I love that title, George. And last but certainly not least, Carly Lopez, who is the general manager of Points West Living Wainwright. So again, so excited to be here with all of you today and get this show started. So to get us going, I kind of have a question for each of you. And really, that word empowerment. So I'm going to kind of ask each one of you to go around and talk about, what does empowerment mean to you? So let's start off with Sarah. Sarah, do you want to go first?
Yes. So empowerment is something that's my job. My job as a general manager is to empower others. And like the process of empowerment is becoming strong, becoming confident, and becoming in control of your life. That's when you look up kind of definitions, it talks a lot about being in control and being confident in your decisions. And that's my job, is to empower my care partners, my employee care partners, to empower my family members, and to empower my residents, and to be an advocate for people, to gain back that power. Because empowerment, I guess, to empower someone you've taken away, like there's a little bit of that take away, so it's to give them back that power. Years ago, I was in a rec position, and I had this really great mentor, this leader, a wise leader I had that was in our building, and she made me feel so valued. She really took the time to get to know me, and she supported me. She appreciated me. She really made me feel like I was something special. And so this role came up that I really did not feel qualified for. I didn't feel I had any experience doing it, but she had faith in me. Like, all this appreciation, acknowledgement that she gave me made me have this confidence to go into this role. And so I went into a role that I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know how to do payroll or do a spreadsheet or anything. It was an admin role at the time. And I excelled at it. I really felt like I did really great things, and I made great relationships, and I excelled at it. But I only excelled at that role because I was empowered. I think if I didn't have such a wise leader who filled my bucket every day and who really supported me, I don't think I would have excelled at that. I think I would have, not done as well, because I wasn't as confident about that role. So I think to me, that's what empowerment is growing each other. You're growing others, and you're wanting them to exceed. You're wanting them to do well. And as a general manager, that's one of the biggest part of my roles, is growing my care partners and growing others. That's my main role. I think sometimes I wish I was called like the growing supervisor of the building or something, the general manager title, because I don't know if I really manage. More as I support my care partners.
Yeah,
we
like the word coach too.
So. Right, coach. That's a better word for it. I'm the coach, community coach.
That's so important, Sarah. At the Eden Alternative, we really talk about conditions of empowerment. And one of them is a supportive environment. You need that in order to step further and reach out. That's just a beautiful story of that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Michelle, what do you think about that same question?
Um, for me, empowerment, like it kind of says itself, like power is right in the center of that word. And having, that power and that control over of your own self, right? And your own choices. And maintaining, having a sense of personal identity, having choices and control. Um, Having a sense of usefulness and being needed, right? And maintaining that and that sense of worth. And when you're empowered, all of those come into play, right? Like, and it's important to live your life as you want to live it. So when we empower people, that gives them that support and that um, ability to do that and the confidence to go ahead and make those choices for yourself, right?
Hmm. Yeah, this concept is so huge. Yeah,
It
thank
could go
you.
on forever.
I know, right? Well, that's good. We're having a show about it. George, what do you think about this empowerment?
Well, empowerment for me is something that you could never lose, really, right? So when we have we build our buildings or we develop new communities, it's very, very important that we speak to our elders to find out how we can improve. It goes back to language and the foundation of all we do. And when you think about why do I even need to empower you? Like Sarah said, it's something we've lost somehow, and then we're trying to gain it back by empowering others. And although we've never lost that part, so I feel like I'm always empowered, or I think our residents should always be empowered. Always should be able to say what they need to say. They always should be able to make their wishes known to us, and or for themselves, and just do it. So when I look at development and how we need to move forward, new buildings and new communities that we're building, we need that input back from our residents to say, how do we improve, right? In the Eden Alternative, we say care is we're still able to grow and we're still able to learn. And we need to harvest the learnings from our buildings in present to what the building is in the future. So that's the living environment for residents, elders, and people that maybe need a little bit of support and help. So for me, the word empowerment is something that needs to be lived every day. It cannot be taken away. It should not be taken away. And therefore, it's not something that should ever be lost. But we know that in institutions and facilities, and now I did say the F word. I'm really, really sorry about that. But that's the one word that really, really bugs me, because nobody wants to live in a facility. And that I've never met anybody that said, "Hey, let me move into your facility."
Yeah.
So it really bugs me. So I finally got that out of my system. So thank you very much for that, and letting me rant a little bit. And just to finish off on that word and how we view the development at Connecting Care, building new communities and improving existing communities, because it is never about bricks and mortars. It is about the people that live within, and how they can grow, and how we have that ability to further ourselves. When we look at new buildings or existing buildings, we must look at the largest group of people that we serve, which is our resident. And then second largest people that we serve are our employee care partners. And we take that into consideration and take their feedback. I don't see how we can go wrong in developing and growing and learning. So thank you. And maybe you want to throw the question on to the next person, or do you want me to go?
Sure. Yeah, we can keep going. Thank you very much, George. I love that. Yeah, we talk a lot about it's the system. It's not the people. It's the system they've been given. So thank you for bringing that up. And it's more than just the physical building. it's operations, and it's personal transformation. So yeah, a lot of good points, George. Thank you. Mary Lou, what do you think?
Well, just to touch on with my fabulous teammates here, I think for me, empowerment is having the opportunity to speak and be heard, and also being part of the solution to whatever the concern might be. Being present at that table is really, really important. And for me, also, empowerment begins and ends with really good communication. That to me is key, and making sure the right people are present and are able to speak whatever the concern or what they want needs to be addressed. So that would be the key thing for me, based on what everyone else has already mentioned.
Oh, Mary Lou, I love that you bring that up. We talk a lot about decision making, right, at the Eden Alternative. And sometimes we say no decision is a good decision. And that could be because you don't have the right people at the table. And if we're making decisions for others that we don't have any experience about, not cool, right? Not cool. So what you brought up, that was, yeah, gold right there. Absolute gold. Carly.
All right. So a little bit of, to touch on what empowerment means to me in my world, in my position or role at Points West Living Wainwright. Born as a leader or born as a manager, you're destined to control, to organize, to lead, to manage, and really like emphasize on the word control. But really, so you go to university to become a manager, and then you get into a workplace like that is Edenized, like we are, which is incredible. It makes you actually take a step back and become a better leader, because you're not the one that's making the decisions anymore. You have to look to your teammates, so your employee care partners, but most importantly, the residents who live in your community. Those are the people that you're serving that are going to be making the decisions for how they want to live. So they have to help you make the decisions that you're going to make. So it's really allowed me, the Eden Alternative has really allowed me and challenged me to become a better follower when we have been almost forced and groomed into becoming a leader. So it's been really wonderful and allowing me to take a step back. So for an example, in our community, we have a beautiful courtyard. We have about 120 residents that live in our community. They both, there's a mixture of abilities within our community. And our courtyard is completely designed, completely managed, controlled, planned by all of our residents in our community. So they each play a part. They each have a garden bed. If they want to go out and they want to buy something, they say, Carly, this is what I'm going to go buy, and I'll bring you back the receipt. And it's like, that's wonderful. They get to take complete control of that and ownership of it. So they get to do what they would like for their own home. And going back to the word that George said about living in a facility, within our Eden Alternative, our belief in our community is that everyone's room, their suite should look like their home. So when we have move-in meetings, and I say to the families, yeah, the room is empty. You get to decorate it. We want you to make it as much as their home as it does right now, from Fifth Ave to right now in Points West Living. We want you to decorate it just like you have it decorated at their house. So it's for them. And they're blown away. Like, what? We get to do that? You let us hang pictures on the wall? Like, they're just, yeah, it's like a whole new concept. So it's really wonderful to let the residents have their home. It's so very important that we work in their home. Yeah.
Thank you, Carly. Yeah, some people use the word like home like, and I'm kind of like, for better or for worse, it's these people's home. So yes, that is so important of having that kind of autonomy, which is one of our domains of well-being, really strengthened. And that definitely comes through empowerment. So yeah. So thank you. Thank you. So George, let me turn it over to you, oh wise George, to talk a little bit about your role with ownership and governance and really helping develop these new communities with empowerment. So tell us a little bit about that.
So as my unique position as ambassador of community experience, we're looking at making some further changes to involve residents in community further in advocacy with government and advocacy against ageism and stigmatism on elders. So we're working towards a better understanding between all generations, right? So we're already encouraging through our philosophy and the Eden Alternative, we're encouraging the participation of children, the participation of animals and plants. Now we're taking it to our elders to decide which role they want to play, whether they write letters to city council to get a bus stop in front of their building, in front of our building, or let's just say our building, because that's all the care partners together, right? In front of our building. So we see a big involvement in occupational health and safety from a resident standpoint as we examine exit points, say for a disaster or an emergency. We have residents stepping up and writing letters to the towns to get guardrails or handrails added to the building, and when there is none in the code, we're asking to add them, because when we exit a building in a hurry, we need something to grab onto, because we're dealing with mobility issues, or we could be dealing with visual issues as we age. We have diminished abilities, say, right? Visual and hearing, and that thing is blaring in your ears. Besides that, Carly already mentioned, we have all of our gardens, all the decisions are being made by residents. And then in our prep meetings with Chris, she reminded me of the way we do govern ourselves with residents. It should be the resident's home. It is the resident's home, so they should make all the decisions. If they have diminished ability to make decisions, we will help. We will then step in and do with the resident as much as they can. And then at the end, we'll have residents sit with us while we do what they can't, but they're still there to give us advice to get it right. So in my role, it is to make sure that is being considered always. So it's always in people's forefront. So we never fall into the trap of, I can do it quicker, I can do it faster, so why don't you let me do that, dear? We are going totally away from that. So for me, the empowerment here is to have resident councils from the start of a new community, so that we get that input back, that we have residents' input in everything we do, from the menus to the recreation to whatever engagement that we have, and that we're out there and shouting into the community that we are alive inside. With the pandemic that is happening here and all around us, the pandemic has been awful for us, because it led to some isolation, or it led to a big problem of isolation on top of loneliness. And so what did we have to do to keep people engaged and family engaged? And I know we have multiple examples probably throughout. Everybody that is watching this show has done whatever they could to break isolation and not let it happen, and not let our residents suffer from that. Because in the end, our employees were able to go home at night and go back to their families, where our residents, although they are at home, could not go and see their families. And so we came up with the video and the virtual visits, and we came up with through the window visits, and right, we've experimented like crazy for the last 2 years. In our communities, we encourage quilting, we encourage the palliative programs. Again, we have, for folks to stay with us longer, we are now into hospice care or hospice services. I like to say palliative services, because we're not true hospices in every building. We cannot achieve that just because of the service and palliative services involved. But we have residents advocating so that they can pass away at home. And we have residents writing letters and achieving to have these services added onto our community. So it's really quite an amazing journey for all of us. And especially for me, and the learning that I get every day of what is possible. It's almost like the little engine. Nothing is impossible, right? You just keep going and then see what is next. What do we do today? I brought up the quilters, and don't know if I get another chance to speak, but we had a really cool story about our how at the Three Robins in Red Deer, one of our communities, the residents took upon themselves to paint some rocks in remembrance to truth and reconciliation. And I think the story, the way the elders were looking at it, is say, how do we participate in truth and reconciliation? And I think now you see one of those issues popping up also in the States, that is all children's lives matter. And it's the discovery of graves through the residential school system, where children had died in the school system and they were just buried in unmarked graves. The families did not know. It's really a sad story. But our residents wanted to shine a light on that, and residents wanted to bring that forward to say, how do we truly reconcile here? And so they went out and they painted, I think you have some pictures too, Chris, for that. They painted these rocks, and they're actually quite beautiful to behold. This community here invited other communities to participate in the remembrance of these children that lost their lives and families that suffered from it. And painted over 2,000 of these rocks, and everybody participated in this. We invited schools, the residents invited schools to participate, and pretty soon we had landscape companies actually donating these rocks to the schools, to residences. And then we saw other residences in Calgary, Edmonton, and in Stettler, and in Stony Plain. Everybody painted rocks, and then they shipped them into the Three Robins in Red Deer, and they were all displayed. Now I'm going to try and share my screen, Chris. I know you're going to now be shaking because I am going to try this. Share screen.
Don't worry, I'm not shaking.
I'm doing it with audio. Watch this now. Watch this. Watch this.
Hopefully we have a video to share with our audience today.
Yeah, let's hope. Oh.
All right. Well, George is getting that going. I just want to point out a comment that we had from Tim Knight. He talks about empowerment equals inclusion, having a seat at the table and a voice in decision making. So that is just beautiful. All right. So let's see.
We're in Monastewan, an area of the community safe area and gathering place for thousands of years. They have one area talking about all the rocks, and there's a really nice quote.
Been an amazing time. Who would have thought that a trip to my daughter's for a little visit would end up to this? Here's next door, bringing her goodies in as usual. Some cookies got into your collection. Cookies, you!
Hey, hi, hi, hey, oh. Hey, hi, hey, oh. Hey, hi,
And are we back?
Yes, we are back. Thank you for sharing that video.
And I see you. Yes. So one of the participants, and sorry, I forget. The name escapes me, but she said the way it all started was actually through a visit to her daughter, and she speaks to that in the video, the little blurb that we took out there. Started to just to alleviate boredom. She had a visit to her daughter, and both of them painted rocks, and they started talking. And when she came back to the community, some lady said, "Where were you this weekend?" And she said, "Oh, I went to my daughter and we painted rocks." And the lady said, "Well, would you teach us?" And of course, we would teach you. And so she sat down with the ladies and they painted rocks. And it was just during that time when we came into the forefront, the All Children's Lives Matter movement started. And so why the ladies decided to paint rocks with that symbolize these and recognize these children, and that led them to Truth and Reconciliation, because that was big up here in Canada during the summer, and the movement really took hold. So the ladies decided, how do we participate? And then I think now I gave you the beginning of my story that I told you earlier. But that's how it all started. So it is a very, very much resident-driven, resident initiated, and all we did as care partners was to support. And I think that is what I wanted to underscore here, to say it is a powerful way of guiding a community. I think Sarah said it right, and Marilu, Carly, and Michelle. It is resident-driven. It is based on trust, and it is based on it's based on that. So I'm looking for this word and it's not coming in my head now. But it is definitely empowered people, a trusted people, right? And the ability to make a mistake, I think it is trust that enables us to do this, which also then allows me to make a mistake, and then Sarah will forgive me. I know she will.
Right. We really talk about, mistakes are often looked at that punitive thing where,
Right.
Mistakes, they're going to happen. It's ridiculous to think they don't. So getting out of that mindset. So really good point, George. And thank you for sharing that story with the rocks, and, something so little where it started and it grew into so much. And what I really heard from, you during that story was the support. Again, that supportive environment that allowed something to just grow into something so beautiful. So beautiful. So thank you. I know we talked a little bit before, Carly, about empowerment at Points West Living. Is there anything else you want to add into that? I know you were talking about the residents outside in the garden.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, something that we could kind of piggyback off of what Tim's comment said about the trust and the inclusion, which is typically what we see as empowerment. But what's really evident in our community is the trust that our employee care partners have with our residents. Even some care partners say to me, "Isn't it annoying to you that the residents are always in your office with questions or concerns, or how do you get any work done during the day?" And some days I say, "I don't think I got much work done today, but I built a relationship with that resident who can now trust me, and that's more important than any spreadsheet can offer in this position." Because George talked about occupational health and safety, and it's true. Our residents come up with concerns. "Hey, I saw this in the hallway. Did you notice that?" Or, there's an icy patch at the south entrance. Did you even know that was there? And most of the time we don't, because there's a lot more residents than there are employee care partners. So they play an extremely valuable role in our community, especially for their own selves. So it's very, very important to have that trusting relationship, so that the residents and employee care partners feel empowered and included in our communities.
Wow. Oh, I love that. That's like more eyes and ears.
Yes, absolutely.
Because this is their home.
Oh yeah, and it is the biggest group that we serve. So why wouldn't we listen to them, right? This is we're saying it all the time. We're here to serve, but and not really to boss you around, right? But so if you're thinking about this from an ownership perspective or a manager perspective, it is wise to let the folks help you, or else to even take on the rudder. And you take that step back. And I think it's Carly that said that earlier, that said, all I need to do is step back. Mm-hmm. Somebody smarter than me said one time, is like, you don't need to have the best ideas. You just have to choose the right one.
Or have the people who live there choose the right one.
Right. Sure. Exactly. Right. Yeah. Just listen.
Yeah. Listen. Right. Encourage and support, trust, build relationships. All this stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. Sarah, over to you a little bit. I know you have a story for us about empowerment in your community, or you just want to talk about it a little bit, or whatever you're going to do.
So my community, I think, is a lot like, it's kind of like Carly. So kind of just piggybacking to what she's talked about, the garden, how it's really resident, their domain, and they direct what they want in there. So we have a resident here, Norbert, and he's our master gardener, we call him. He makes our outside of our building look amazing. And he is in a wheelchair, an electric wheelchair, and he does not walk at all anymore. He's very limited mobility-wise, but he still does it. And we support him to do that. We get him what he needs, get him his flowers he needs. But he's been here for over 10 years. And for 10 years, he has been our gardener. And the one day he was having a conversation with some of the employee care partners, and he was saying, back on my farm, I always had an apple tree. It's not a garden without an apple tree. He's like, I grew up with apple trees in my yard, in my gardens, on my land. And he's like, that's what this place, he's like, we need his apple tree one day. So the care partners, his family came in one day, and they approached his family. They said, like, hey, like, what type of apple trees did you guys have? And we would love to plant an apple tree to, commemorate Norbert's hard work. Like, he does so much for us that we need something to remember him by when he isn't here to do all those great things in our garden for us. And so the family actually went out and they purchased an apple tree that was the exact same kind that was in their family's land, and they planted it. They came in with the care partners, and with Norbert, and they all planted it in our courtyard. And I was a general manager at the time, and as a general manager, I had no idea this was going on. I just heard about it after the fact, and I just thought, man, this is an empowered community. The care partners worked with the residents to make something that was important to him happen. They worked with the family. They didn't ask permission. They didn't do it. They just did it, and they did it because they loved their residents. And this is Norbert's home, and they needed it to make it his. And part of making it his home was having this apple tree. So those are his two handsome grandsons in the picture that came in and planted that for us. But to me, this is just a really great example of empowered community, empowered residents, empowered care partners. We're making decisions for our building, for our community, based on what they want, not on what I want as the head of operations in our building. It's what they want. And I think that Carly said it perfectly, is that as a general manager, we need to become a follower, not a lead. We don't want to take that lead role. And I think that's what I really try to do with our residents here is put the decision making back in their hands. If we want to paint a hallway, it's not me who makes that decision. It's the residents who walk down that hallway every single day. We want to hang a picture. It's not me who decides what picture we have. It's the residents who have to look at that every day. I may only have to look at it for 8 hours of my day, but they leave it for 24 hours, and it was really about supporting them to do what they want and making it happen, and including them in every decision we make when it comes to the community, the best that we can, and including the care partners. Things shouldn't come from me just because I'm the title, right? It should come from the residents and the care partners. So yeah, I just think that that's what's really important to promote is taking that authority away from myself and giving it the people who should
And I think, Sarah, you said it the best when you said, I'm the general manager and I didn't even know that was happening. So often that happens in our community too, and someone will say, didn't you know that happened? It happened 2 weeks ago. And it's like, you're kind of embarrassed, but at the same time you're happy because they did it without having to ask for permission.
Yes, exactly. And that's the way it should be, is that they shouldn't have to worry about. I always say just do it and ask for forgiveness later. If it's something that maybe we should have, looked into a rule. But I'm like, yeah, that's what they should do, is just do it and see how it goes.
The Suns just kind of showed up with the tree that day, actually, and just said, yeah, we have this for Norbert, and away they went. And it wasn't even a predetermined spot where they were putting it, and they just decided that's where it should go.
That's great. I love that, the apple tree story. We have another comment from Tim Knight talking about empowerment. And he just says, he doesn't want someone coming in. Who wants someone coming in telling you what to do? Right? People want a voice in their own home. So he loves that you all appreciate and honor that in your homes. And it looks like wherever he is, he does the same. So that's beautiful. Thanks, Tim. Thanks for watching and thanks for commenting. So I think we're going to come over and talk to Michelle for a little bit, right, Michelle?
A little bit, yeah.
All right. So you're an educator as part of your role.
Yes.
So you're going to share with us a little bit about empowerment and education and how important that is, right?
Right. Well, in our community here, I often get even family members coming to me asking about things like medications or, things like that. And I can't, I don't tell them what I think they should do. I just give them that, that reliable information for them to make up their minds on whether to increase some medication or whatever, right? I just give them the information. This is what it is, maybe we can try, unmet need or something like that. But so in here, also, I just equip people with, the skills they need to make those and the knowledge to make those kind of decisions, right? We have an online e-learning, and the care partners are responsible to do that yearly. There's mandatory education, but there's also other education on there that they can choose to do on their own. And a lot of times they will add another course depending, and when you give people that education, they become more confident, right? That reliable information and more, engaging. They're not scared to go ahead and do what they need to do, so. And here we just we had just finished an Eden Associate course with some of the families and residents. They just finished a 3-day course with residents, families, and some residents were involved in that. And one of the residents that actually took that course, she was involved. We had an internal application, and she was involved in some of the interviewing with that. And that was her question for every one of the people who went in for that job. She asked them, what do you know about the Eden? Was her question, because she had taken that course. So it was kind of nice, right?
That's great. Yeah, and Michelle, when we talk about those conditions of empowerment, as you know, skills and knowledge are some of the other things. We need a supportive environment, but we also need the skills and the knowledge, right? If people don't have them, we can't expect them to make good decisions.
Right. And in supporting them, to make so they can figure out what they can do for themselves and what they want in their lives, in their daily life, right? Yep. And having that education and knowing that, then that's massive.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you for being part of that.
Yeah. And the Eden Associate training, we too did it in our community. I guess it was just before the pandemic started. But even the healthcare aides or the employee care partners that were participating in it, their eyes were open too and realized holy smokes, like my residents, but the residents that live here, they're able to do a whole lot more. So why am I, putting on their shirt as quickly as I can when they
Right.
can do it? It's just going to take them a little bit longer. And that's so important. Like, and again, it goes back to stepping back and letting the residents do them. They're their own person. They're able. It just may take them a little bit longer.
Yeah. And as an educator here, I find that I'm coaching care partners to remind them sometimes that that's okay, that it takes a little longer to do that. It's okay not to have their juice like pre-poured, because let them make that decision, right? Like just doing things like that.
Yeah, the juice always gets me. That's one of my pet peeves. Like, I want cranberry juice, 360, whatever. You still need to ask me, because there's one day I'm going to want a Coke, right? Or whatever. And I want to be asked that for sure.
And I have to say, it was George that pointed that out to me in one of his visits. That never even crossed my mind, coming from another place of work. And he opened my eyes to that. And now I open them for everybody else, George, just so you know.
That's awesome, Michelle.
Yeah, we unfortunately, and it's not the people, but it's the system. We can create excess disability and learned helplessness.
Yes.
Right. So those are two of the phrases that we use at the Eden Alternative. We're actually adding in by good, well-meaning. We're not trying to hurt anybody. Right. So, so that's really important. Good stuff, Michelle. Thank you very much. Hey, Mary Lou, you want to share a little bit about being a community mentor?
Sure, because I have a fabulous job. I mean, even the title, community mentor. So for me, two key principles that I like to really keep at the forefront of what I do are Principle 8. So de-emphasizing that top-down bureaucracy, authority, putting it into the hands of our elders, our residents, and or those closest to them, which ends up being our employee care partners or family members. The other one is Principle 10, and that's about wise leadership. And for me, being a leader means creating other leaders. So that's really what I strive to do in part of my community mentor role. So part of my role, I oversee, I guess, the general managers in 6 communities. So I've got 2 fabulous ones here on the panel. And something that I'm really proud of that we've done in both of these communities, both Carly and Sarah's, is called an employee care partner wellness pod. And so the purpose of this wellness pod is to collaborate together to make it an even better community for both our residents and our employee care partners. And it's a chance for employee care partners to honor and actively promote the 7 domains of well-being. So in these wellness pods, so we normally meet quarterly in the communities, and it's myself representing our home or corporate office, and usually the general manager is at the meetings, as well as any employee care partner is invited to attend. And we really look at solution-driven concerns, problems that they might have, and promoting also wellness for both themselves and the residents. So an example of what we did is one time I remember sitting down, and sometimes it can get a little hot in these meetings, but we had a care partner came to me and said, you know what we need, Mary Lou? We need more staff. You just need to give me more staff. And so, I sat back for a moment and I thought, well, it's not really how our funding works. So I went through a little bit of explaining the funding model and how that works from a government perspective. But what we could do, like to get down to what the issue is and what we could do to help the scenario. Is it moving people around in maybe a cottage that's a little bit lighter care? And really work with them on solutions that we can work in within the parameters, right? Because I'd love to be able to wave my magic wand and provide more care partners, but that's really not how the system works. And really working with them to empower them on solutions. So when they come to these meetings, they know me by now, it's come with solutions. So don't just dump because if you're dumping a problem, I'm going to go back to say, okay, well, what do you think should be done? And really working with the communities and the different cottages on whether it's through a learning circle or, focus groups, but really what is the solution to that problem, and what can we deal with, and what maybe you might need a little bit of help. And so, Sarah, I don't know if you have anything to add on that, but it's been very successful with them really feeling that they've had a strong voice in the community. And also then we look at different positive things and different initiatives. So we've also looked at community initiatives. We've looked at things, drives like for the food bank that the care partners want to do to give back to the community. We've had team building events, but it really is driven by the employee care partners, and I'm there to support. But really the challenge is empowering them at the community level and what they need to do to make this community the best place to live and work. So Sarah, I don't know if you have any comments of what we've done before too.
Yeah, Mary Lou, I can attest for our wellness pod. I think it's a really great opportunity to have care partners have a voice, to have a really great work-life balance. I've always said, and I preach this, is happy care partners, happy residents. I think this is like my motto. I say it to everybody. I say it in every meeting. I say it in my Eden training, because I think when care partners are supported, appreciated, acknowledged, when they have a voice, when they can come to a place and say, okay, this is what we want. This is what's going to make my work-life balance better. And they get an answer. I think that empowers them to have a place where you're not just coming with concerns. You're not just coming with, you're getting an answer. And that's where, like, when you have all these concerns and you never hear an answer, it deflates you. But when you hear an answer, when you hear education, when you hear the why to your question, I think it's an empowerment tool, because then you're like, okay, this is why we don't get more staffing. Okay, now what can I do to make this better? It empowers them to brainstorm and put their heads together and find out solutions as a team. And it makes it for a better environment, a better culture in our community. So wellness has been a positive tool in our community.
And I think being heard too from a home office, like I say, the home office from a corporate level too, so that they understand, kind of where we're coming from, but also to hear them. And then we can make changes at the home office based on what we're hearing from our employee care partners, right? And that's really important too, because sometimes we may think, oh yeah, we're going to do things this way, but they're telling us that actually doesn't work, right? Like that doesn't work, Mary Lou, because of X, Y, and Z. So it's really important. And these wellness pods have made it so that we can hear each other respectfully and have really great conversations around some challenges and looking at solutions. So I'm really proud of our wellness pods, and I think it's great for both myself as a mentor as well as the community and the employee care partners. So just something that we're going to continue to do and empower our care partners for both the residents and the employees. So again, make it the best place to live and work.
Love it. Thank you, Mary Lou. Thank you, Sarah. So I have because I know we're kind of winding down here with our time, but I'm going to share a couple of things. I know you gave us your mission, vision, and core values. So I'm going to pop those up on the screen along with a couple website links for you guys. But while I'm doing that, I have a final question for all of you. And I'm just wondering, what kind of advice do you have that you can share with other communities on empowering strong teams? If you had to pick one or two things that you would give to people for advice on this, what kind of would you want to say? I don't know who wants to go first, and then call on each other.
I can go first. Oh,
thanks, Luke.
I spoke up first, George. I think for me, it is really, if you want to empower your care partners, you really need to work on listening, really listening to what they have to say. And then just like they did in Sarah's community and Carly's community, allow them to do it. And I hate the word allow, but that's just to go out there and do something, and whether it works or it doesn't work, but just making sure that they're the ones that know that they can make a difference, right? And to challenge them to do that, to just do that, would be my piece of advice for empowering them.
Yeah, and then supporting them, right? Supporting and like you were talking about, giving them the information, education too, on some things that they might need, and and just yeah.
I think for me, my advice, I have a lot. So I'll try and just think it to like 1 or 2 points. So number one, Nancy Fox says there are 3 things we all need: to be accepted, to be appreciated, and to be respected. And I think when you are thinking about empowering care partners, empowering residents, empowering family members, those are 3 things we want to consider. Do they respect us, and can we respect them? And that trust is so important, and appreciation. And this last month, I have 2 words that have just been guiding me these last month, and that's gratitude and acknowledgement.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when we are acknowledged, when our strengths and our positives are acknowledged, we're going to grow and we're going to be empowered. And I think when we are grateful for the things that we have, and we're grateful for each other, and grateful for our residents and our team members, that's going to empower people as well. So that's my little bit of advice, is just acknowledgement and gratitude. And just Nancy Fox's 3 things. I think it's really important. It all starts with appreciation and respect and gratitude.
And for me, the most important, I guess, perspective for me is to build the relationship. Know your care partners, know their husbands, know their kids, know your family or your residents and their families, know everyone's name. It's so important, even though we have 120 residents and 95 care partners, that I know each and every one of their names, their families' names, and genuinely have a connection with them. It's so important. And then that comes naturally to piggyback on what Sarah said, is it's once you know them and have a relationship, it's easy to appreciate and to acknowledge them. And then that trust just builds far better. And
Right.
George, you're next.
Well, it's hard to get a word in edgewise. But for me, just listening, I was so proud to be part of this team with our residents and yourselves. And I think what I don't even know if it's not advice that I'm giving. People can take away what they like here. But if you have a building full of life experiences, and whether that is mine or Marilou's, Carly's, Michelle's, or Sarah's, or Chris's life experiences, we have residents that have, I guess, multiple more years of life experience. And it's time that we harvested that. And if you go back to one of our titles for our conferences, and it was Alive Inside. And once the pandemic started, and I want to go back there because the pandemic highlights so many of those issues for us, where the medical master is trying to take back control on us, right? You can't visit, no, you can't have this, you can't have that. That's what we heard for 2 years. And what have we done, right? So we look at our residents and their life experiences, and what have you done during the flu seasons, and when we didn't have vaccines for this and that. And it's not the first time that we've been here. And you'd see residents reacting and saying, well, we've done this before, and this is how we did it. What did communication look like? So why not look at that as a group, as all of us together, to say, how do we overcome this? And then how do we shout out, we are alive inside? And then, let us become the center of excellence and not the nursing home. Let's do away with that language. Again, we're back to that. And now that we can look at these base, at the foundation again, to say, now let's rebuild. Let's come back bigger, better, stronger out of this, by just recognizing that people live inside our buildings. And they're not there to be warehoused, but to be taken seriously. And now we can go into this ageism and stereotyping of elders and say, well, let's do away with that too. And then look at the whole community, right? Adding the power of and wisdom of the elders back into how do we make life more livable for everybody, and take those experiences into consideration. Now, while I have all of you here and have all of your attention, I like to always do a pitch. We're starting up again our third annual Steps to Mental Health that'll happen next summer, and we just collect steps, and we want everybody to participate to make it around the world. 66 million or 72 million steps to make it all around the equator, and then visit places. So we're starting that up again next summer. And Chris, you'll be in charge of fanning out the information and how to participate. So everybody, I want everybody's steps. That doesn't cost any money. I just want your steps. You log on and we count them for you, and then you get to brag. You get to brag where you've been, who you visited with, what you've learned, and then come back and let us know. Start a pen pal program with your schools. Write back and say, I've been to Rio de Janeiro this year. I've been to Victoria Falls, and I think I climbed the Mount Everest as well with some of our residents. So the other thing is a great program is caroling. Of course, it's coming up here right away next month. Send out caroling videos from your residents and ask grandchildren to carol back to them. You can do that with your iPhone, just very, very quickly. Make relationships, strengthen your relationships, listen and visit with each other. And although you may be restricted, and I hope not, but be ready to have some visits, virtually or not, or otherwise. And the third one, which even my dearest friends don't know about, lip syncing contests. I thought they were hilarious. Chris, I'm going to hand it back to you. You have the talking stick now.
All right. Well, there you go. The challenge has been laid down for you all who are watching today. So thank you. And again, thank you so much. Connecting Care Points West, Sarah, Michelle, Carly, Mary Lou, and George. It's been a pleasure setting up this show and working with you. And I will continue to look forward to the partnership that we have with you and the Eden Alternative in the future. So thank you again. And everybody out there, have a great day.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.